And then once I have all of, oh my God, are you kidding me? I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. There we go, there we go. Okay, yay! All right, welcome again. So I am finished with my through hike of the PCT, and it was quite the adventure. So I asked you guys to give me some questions, and I'm just going to go ahead and dive into that, and then I'm going to also just, tell you some of the things that I went through out there. So here we go. I think one of my favorite questions is from Wes. He said, Sarah, done anything interesting lately? Where would you start answering that one? Congrats. Looking forward to seeing you finish the Triple Crown one day. Yes. So lately, I have been running quite a lot, and I did go run the ultra marathon in Michigan. It was a backyard ultra marathon, and that is where you run the same 4.2 miles of trail every hour until one person is left. So I did that. I got to mile 1850 in Oregon, so I was pretty much 2/3 of the way done with my hike. And we saw that there was snow from there all the way to Canada. It was at the end of June. And originally I had wanted to be done with the PCT and then run the ultra marathon, but I started the trail in March, early March, March 7th, and I went through so much snow. So I realized that I was going to have to make a decision. I was either going to have to just keep going and finish the PCT, or take a chance, go home, train for a few weeks, and then run the race, and then hope that no wildfires broke out. And I was willing to take that risk because I love ultra marathons. This was only my second race, but I ended up being the last female standing, and I ran 104 miles. It was crazy. I learned a lot, and what ended up knocking me out of the race was that I stopped eating. So there was a thunderstorm actually right before the sun was about to come up on the second day. There was a huge thunderstorm, and they paused the race for 3 hours, I believe, and my body just tightened up, and I stopped eating once they resumed the race. But I was really proud of the effort, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for me in ultra running. And I think I am going to pause through hiking for a little while and just focus on running. I have some big plans for this year. Actually, my plan for this year is to just make it into the big backyard, and that's held in Lazarus Lake's backyard. If you don't know who he is, he created the Barkley Marathons. So some of you may know who that is and what that is. If you don't, you should look it up. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. But yeah, that is probably the most interesting thing I've done, except we had been looking for some property in East Tennessee so that we could be closer to the mountains. And we found the perfect piece of land. However, the home was pretty much condemned. And anyway, it didn't work out, but that was a really interesting experience. So that's what's been on my plate lately. We've been looking for a place to call home in East Tennessee, but I think we're going to put that on pause, and I'm just going to focus on running. All right. So next question is from Pungo Hiker. I actually summited with Pungo, Mogul, Hawk last year on my AT Thru-hike. And he said, Mogul and I are planning to hike the PCT next year and have lots of questions for you, particularly the advantages, disadvantages of starting earlier, such as February or March. Yeah, so I think a lot of advantages to starting early in March, even maybe early April. you are pretty much going to guarantee that you can hike most, if not all, of the trail if you just hike consistently. So yeah, I think that's the advantage of it. The disadvantage is that you're going to have to deal with a lot of snow. And for me, that was the hardest part because I had no experience with using an ice axe. I used little tiny exo spikes on the AT and had never really used crampons. So I ended up actually carrying crampons and micro spikes because I went into the Sierra April 22nd. So very, very early. I was one of the first 20 people into the Sierra, and yeah, it was crazy. Nothing was open, and we had to carry 8 to 10 days of food on our back. I'd never carried that much weight on my back, and I really thought that I was going to get stress fractures in my feet. But thankfully I didn't, and I'm really grateful because I didn't have any injuries on this hike. I was really, really blessed. I had 2 bouts of gastrointestinal illness, one coming into Hiker Town. There's some cisterns that you have to filter from coming into Hiker Town, and I am suspect that I got something from that, or it was noro, but there weren't a lot of hikers around, so I don't know. But then at the end of my hike, when I went back to where I left off in Oregon, that's when all the wildfires started breaking out. And luckily, I did not have to miss much trail. So I left at mile 1850. The morning I was going to get on trail, they actually shut down from Diamond Lake Resort, which is at mile 1850, to Shelter Cove Resort. So that's 59 miles of trail that I had to shuttle around. It was an official PCT closure. So, but I was really lucky in that respect because a lot of people had to completely skip all of NorCal, and a lot of people ended up, once the fires got going, skipping all the way to Cascade Locks in Washington. So I feel really, really blessed. It was 104 miles total of trail that I had to that were closed, official PCT closures because of wildfire. And I barely made it to Canada. I actually finished the trail on August 30th, and they closed the trail 3 days later. So my heart breaks for people that were so close and they couldn't actually touch that. But you know what? This is something I've learned. The trail is just like life. It's not perfect. And there is actually no one this year that legally could have hiked the entire PCT because of the Lion's Head closure. So if you think about it that way, even Josh Perry set the FKT, a new FKT on the trail, a self-supported record. He actually finished the trail in 55 days, 16 hours and 54 minutes. Amazing. And he actually beat Anish's record for self-supported of the PCT. And he even had to go around the Lion's Head closure. So people went through it. Even though the PCT said they were going to revoke permits, there are people that went through it. And there's no judgment from me, but I wasn't going to risk that. So, even Dixie had to go back and fill in fire closures. So I did finish all of the trail that I could. And you guys know me, I'm not a slacker. So I can't wait for you to see. I filled up my phone over 1 terabyte of footage. And so I had to, when I came home for the race, I actually had to get a lot of that content off so that when I went back, I could fill it up again. So, yeah. All right. And then the second half of this question is, we know the risks, but it seems like the weather patterns have changed from previous years. Less rain, more wildfires, and less snow in the Sierras. It will be interesting to hear your thoughts on this. So I think weather patterns change. I don't know. I'm not, a weather person. But, Yeah, they said it was a low snow year in the Sierra, but we were actually navigating. So most of the trail was covered in snow when I first went into the Sierra, and that was really, really interesting. But I think you do have a better chance of finishing the most of the trail, if not all of it, if you start earlier. Just know you're going to have a slower through hike. I thought I was going to fly through this trail. No, it is technically not a really hard trail. What makes this trail difficult is the logistics and the weather. And yeah. And so also when I went back, it was blazing hot and the mosquitoes were terrible. I was miserable when I first went back, and especially all through the rest of Oregon, there's so many trees and the mosquitoes were so thick, they bit my eyelids. I would look back and just rake mosquitoes off of my arms. It was pretty miserable, and it was an adjustment because all of the wildfires that broke out, it was one continuous bubble of hikers. So the trail was crowded, and there was no running through a bubble because it was just one big bubble. So I adapted because that's all you can do. And I really enjoyed the last part of my hike once I accepted that, because I got to meet a lot of great people and I had a lot of fun. So next question is from Lenore Disman. He said, my question would be, I have an amazing opportunity to hike the PCT but get off to run a race, but then end up missing hundreds of miles, not having your continuous footpath. Well, I didn't miss hundreds of miles. I missed 104 miles. Are you still okay with your goal? I am. I am completely okay with my goal. I am ecstatic that I went back when honestly I didn't want to go back and finish, because it was when I got home, it felt good to be home and I really wanted to just keep running. But I finished what I started. So I went back and I finished, and I'm glad that I went back and finished. If I hadn't, I would have missed out on a lot of beautiful things and a lot of great people and life lessons. So yeah, sometimes even though you don't want to do something, if you start something, I believe, for me, if I start something, I want to finish it. All right. Who is next? John Blackburn says, congratulations. My question is, it sounds like you did some big mile days. What was your longest day, week, and how did you do it? What kind of food did you use? Fitness, other. Okay, so my longest week was 250 miles. So from from Donner Ski Ranch all the way to Diamond Lake, where I got off the trail. I was trying at that point to finish the trail before the race. And so I was hiking with a guy from Israel. His trail name is Bubbles. He's a wonderful person and a really great friend. And I can't wait for you guys to get to know him in my videos. He's an amazing hiker. He hikes at about 4 miles an hour all the time. And so it was a good match. I don't hike quite that fast most of the time, but we were able to hike similar mileage. So I was hiking consistent 35 to 45 mile days through that section. My biggest mile day was a 60-mile day, and I did not do the 24-hour challenge, and you'll see more about that in the video. There was going to be a 24-hour challenge, but it was kind of paused, and I ended up hanging out by a lake because it was so hot and there was very little water in that section. But yeah, all in all, I ended up doing 60 miles that day, and it was pretty awesome. Food I used, just hiker food. I did, when I went to that lake, I got a cheeseburger. I'm a big fan of cheeseburgers, as you all know, and croissants and baked goods. So whenever I can get to a town, I'm going to. And I think that is the conundrum with me, is that I like to hike really fast, and then I like to get to town and chill there for a while. And that is really kind of why my videos were paused, because I realized that it meant more to me to spend time with people than it did to sit in my hotel room locked up editing videos. I think for some people it really works well. For me, it was taking away from the hike, focusing on editing when I got to town. I felt like I was missing out with time with people. So that is why the videos were paused. All of the videos there, and you will see all of it. So yeah. And Verty, VRTY, said, are you actually making a movie instead? I've heard people are starting to just make movies and do 40 to 45 miles a day rather than waste time filming every little thing. Well, I don't know if that's a slam at me or I'm not sure, but I'm just going to roll with it. So I don't think I'm making a movie. I mean, I could probably take all my content at some point and roll it together into a documentary, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. I really just want to share it with you guys because I think people want to see it, what it's like, and I think it can be helpful. I think it can be inspirational, and that is why I do what I do, because I see the beauty in it and I want to share it with people. Greg Jacobs said, perhaps you will ponder an FKT or yo-yo of the PCT. You seem to have that ability to put down miles over the long haul. I would not yo-yo the PCT. That trail is a long trail, and it doesn't matter if you hike it slowly or if you hike it quickly. By the end of it, your body is breaking down. So an FKT, I don't know that I want to do an FKT of the PCT, but I can't lie and say that I'm not thinking about possible FKTs in the future. I think it would be more likely on the Appalachian Trail, and I do want to do some smaller FKT attempts before I do a long trail attempt. I want to be certain that that's what I want to do, because that is a big commitment, and when I set my mind to something, I go all out. So there's that question answered. I think that is, oh, no. Brasco 96 Wired said, congratulations. Did you have a favorite section? I honestly loved the desert. So, and I think it was because of when I started. The desert was still pretty cool, and the views were amazing. There were unimpeded views. The wildflowers were blooming. The cactus flowers were blooming, and the sunrises and sunsets and the stars were amazing. So I would say the desert, and the Sierra was incredible. But the Sierra was wild when I was there. So I never quite felt it. There was always this feeling of, I don't belong here. This is so wild. I can't be comfortable here. And it was so just brutal and beautiful. But yeah, the Sierra was amazing. And Washington, I loved NorCal, and I did love Washington. Washington was beautiful. Probably the desert is my favorite section. All right, that's all of these questions. So, what month? Tangent Trails. What month are you starting the CDT next year? I am going to put the CDT on the back burner. I hate to disappoint anyone, but yeah, running is definitely going to take priority. It's already happening, and I'm looking to do some pretty large mile weeks in running, so it's going to require all of my focus and time. So yeah, but I definitely will do the CDT at some point. But Jonathan is going to do the CDT with me. So that is something I did want to talk about. This was the hardest thing, to be away from my husband and my family for so long. And I have an amazing family. I'm so grateful for the support of my husband, Jonathan. But we both agreed that we don't ever want to be apart that long again. So you will see both of us on the CDT at some point. Okay, let me catch up here. Jim Bohannon, just 3 years ago there was record snowfall. Yeah. Melissa Snook, hi beautiful, so proud of you. Thank you, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thanks guys. Okay, Mitzi Mathenia, hey! What was the greatest life lesson you learned through this hike? Wow. I learned a lot of lessons. So I'm a control freak, and I learned that I cannot control anything. And the harder that I tried to punish this trail, it would punish me back that much more. So I've learned more than anything to not try to control everything, and to just kind of go with the flow. And I've also learned that I'm a perfectionist too. So it's okay for me to make mistakes. It's okay for me to be who I am, flawed. And it's okay that I like to get up, hours before the sun and hike all day long. And, a lot of people think that's crazy, but I really like that. And so, yeah, I think it's also that life is short. And if there is something that you really have on your heart, you don't need to waste any more time. You need to do it. You need to find a way to do what's on your heart and share it with people. Thank you for that question, Mitzi. What's the next hike? Yeah, the next through hike would be the CDT, but I do think I'm gonna put through hiking kind of to the side and really just focus on running for now. Is that all my questions? Okay. Lisa Rogers. That's Buttercup. I miss you too. Thank you. Buttercup was a trail angel on the AT so even though I thru-hiked the AT last year, we tried in 2020 before the pandemic, and Buttercup and Jonathan and I all were out there when all of that happened, and she is a really special person. She's very dear to us. Y'all will be smoking together on the CDT. You're darn right. Jonathan is quite the hiker. I will never forget on the AT when I saw him. We had just gone through Mahoosuc Notch, and you have the Mahoosuc arm after the notch, and I see Jonathan just going straight up, flying up the notch, and he catches up to Hawk, and I'm like, wow. He has long legs. All right, I do see some questions now. Did you do Ewok in the Woods? Hey! Did you do the waterfall tunnel in Oregon? It's an alternate PCT that I saw Quadzilla do. Yes, and I think everyone did that. There might have been a few that did the official PCT, but that's the thing about this trail. There's a couple alternates. There's probably more, but there's a couple that you really don't want to miss, and that is Crater Lake alternate and Tunnel Falls alternate. And I will say the Tunnel Falls alternate is one of the hardest side trails I've ever done. And yeah, so it's kind of, you know, choose your own adventure. Now, I only did 2 alternates. I did the Crater Lake alternate and the Tunnel Falls alternate. So you do have that option if you want to. They're both similar mileage to the PCT, so you're still getting the same miles on those trails basically. Yeah. So I did. Yes, it was beautiful. Nick hikes in the woods, run the CDT trail. Yeah. PCT or AT favorite? Honestly, the AT is my favorite. And maybe that's just because it was the first one on my heart. But they are both uniquely beautiful. And I wouldn't say the PCT is amazing. So I think it's just a personal thing for me that I love the coolness and the greenness of the AT. I think it's just a mystical kind of trail. And I love the community around the AT. It is an older trail and the community is more established. Now, that being said, I was blessed with some amazing trail magic on the PCT. I had a family take me in. I had random strangers who offered to give me help, give me rides. I had a subscriber come pick me up late in the night and take me to the In-N-Out Burger after a 45-mile day and then take me to get a hotel room. There's so many people. Oh, and I had a wonderful person in Ashland, Oregon, who gave me a $100 gift card to their health food juice bar. And I had enough to have healthy food and share with other hikers. That was incredible. Just so blessed. And yeah, but I do think the AT is my favorite trail. But I equally love the humans from both sides of both trails. All right. Which ultra marathon? The Pumas 1975. Which ultra marathon are you planning or training for other than the backyard? So right now it's just the backyard. That is my solitary goal for this year, other than I have a couple of small FKTs that I'm interested in doing. But yeah, I want to get into the Big's backyard this year. So that is my goal for this year. What suggestions do you have for 2023 PCT hikers? I would say figure out what kind of hiker you are, what kind of hike that you want. If you want to take it easy, if you're okay with having a little bit of a slower hike, I'd say start earlier so that you have, more of a chance to get past the wildfires, because there's no telling if or when they're going to start coming up. So just figure out your hiking style, figure out how much weight you want to carry, what's important to you, and you can watch someone's video on the gear that they're taking all day long, but ultimately you just have to get out there and hike and figure out what your hiking style is, what's important to you, what you want to carry on your back every day. That's my suggestion. And then just do it. Make a plan and do it. And I will say this. I believe that the PCT is a lot more expensive than the AT. And it is dependent on how you want to hike it. You don't have to go into town a lot if you don't want to, but it's a pretty dusty trail. And you are going to want to get clean, and things are more expensive on the West Coast. So budget for more than you're going to need is my suggestion. And Hike with Mike says, you need to do the Florida Trail. I do. And so I'm not done hiking even though I'm running. Hiking is actually going to be a part of my training for the backyard. So I'm going to be doing more running, but I'm still going to be doing hiking. So even when all of these videos do get out, I am going to be doing other videos. So it's not just going to be, you know, you're not going to see me again until the CDT. But yeah, I would love to do the Florida Trail. It's beautiful from what I've seen. David, so will you be hiking and videoing next year's? I guess you're saying the races. I have considered maybe vlogging some of the race. I don't want it to interfere with anything because you get to a point where you're really having to focus because you're so tired. Once you've been up for over 24 hours, you know, you really kind of have to focus. But I've thought about getting one of the Insta360 cameras so you can kind of run with me at the beginning of the race and then just kind of show the progression of what happens to my mind and my body once it really gets going. I think that's, if you guys want to see that, I definitely would be open to doing some videos on that. And if you just want to see hiking videos, we can do that too. So just let me know what you guys want to see. All right. DB, how are you feeling after all the hiking and the marathon? I felt great after I ran the ultra marathon. So I was in the best shape of my life when I came home, and I only trained for 2 weeks running, and then I tapered, which is where you just drastically cut down running the week before the race. And that's so that all of your reserves in your body build back up so that you can do that long effort. I felt amazing. And the day after I ran that 104 miles, I was able to walk, and I was expecting to just be completely wrecked, but I wasn't. So I came home and I rested for like I think it was three days, and then I was ready to go back to the PCT. And I felt great getting back to the PCT, but I knew because of some reading I had done that you do have to be very careful after running that far so that you don't get injured. So I kind of held back the first week that I was on trail just because I didn't want to get injured. And then I was ready to crank up the mileage, and I got a gastrointestinal issue just from all the people that were out there. I think it could have been day hikers, but there were some ponds, and yeah, it's just people weren't practicing leave no trace principles there, unfortunately, and a lot of hikers got sick coming into Snoqualmie Pass, and I was one of those, and it just drug on. And finally I had to get some medication overnighted to me, and that, a side effect of the medications that I was on is that it gave you emergency number 2. And so I dealt with that for like 2.5 weeks at the end of my hike, and it was awful. And I started to lose too much weight. So thankfully I put that weight back on. But yeah, I was feeling very weak getting to the northern terminus. And it was a very emotional time. I'm not going to reveal all of it, but The wildfires were burning when I was there, and it was disconcerting, and I was dealing with that at the same time. So thankfully, my gut has returned to normal. I'm so, so, so thankful for that. Thankful. Hey, Dawn. Dawn Seeley. Oh, she's awesome. Dawn brought me fresh juice on the AT. I will never forget that. All right. Are there any other questions, Jonathan? I don't see any. Okay. Blah, blah. What was your most challenging day on the PCT? Every day? No, I'm just kidding. That's a good question. I can't think of anything offhand. There were some really challenging days out there, especially in the Sierra. I think that whole section of the Sierra was the most challenging part. There's a lot of days that come to mind, but so I had a 40-liter pack, and I had my bear can. I mean, it was just barely on my pack. My pack wasn't meant to carry a full bear can, but somehow I managed to get it on there, and it was full of food. And then I had my Z-Packs food bag full of food so that I could get to the next exit. And by the way, when everything is closed in the Sierras, you're looking at like 20 miles just to get out of the Sierras. So the roads were all closed when I went in. So you literally had to make sure you had enough food to have that extra day to get out to where you could get back into town. But I would literally drop my pack. My shoulders were just excruciatingly in pain, and I would drop my pack and I would cry because it was awful. I did start to get used to the weight, but I was almost finished with the Sierras by the time that happened. Yeah, that was the hardest part for me. Also, the angled snow was very difficult for me. There were some things I went over that I didn't feel comfortable with, and you could just tell if you made one wrong step, you weren't gonna make it. So that was really difficult for me too. Yeah, on the ultra marathon, a debrief video should be fun. Yeah, that would be fun. It would be awesome. Dawn said, CDT question. Sorry, just got in here. Yes, CDT, but it is going to be put off to the side for a little while. I'm going to focus on running, ultra marathon running, and I've got some FKTs that I'm considering. So this year I'm focusing on getting into Big's backyard, and that is in Lazarus Lake's backyard. He created the Barkley Marathons. I don't know if you know what that is, but you should check it out if you don't. So yeah, that's my plan for this year. All right, guys, we've been on here for 40 minutes. Does anybody have any other questions? Because if you don't, I'm going to go ahead and make this video. I'm just going to pick up where we left off. This is Mount Baden-Powell, and then we'll just keep putting videos out from the hike. Oh, Ewok, have you thought about taking winter mountaineering courses? The CDT will have snow also. Well, yeah, I think that would be beneficial, and I'm very open to that, and I might do it. I feel more comfortable now that I went through so much snow. It wasn't comfortable in the Sierra at all, but I did start to get comfortable using an ice axe, and I got comfortable with the angled snow slopes towards the end of the snow, before I came back home, sorry. Yeah, but I think some advanced training would definitely be a good thing, for sure. All right. Any other questions? I can't see it, Jonathan, because you've got it right. Okay, there we go. Did you see anyone using whippets on the poles instead of an ice axe? What are your thoughts? I've never used a whippet, but yes, I did. Crunchy, who I hiked with, I actually hiked with him. Oh man, where was it? It was coming into Kennedy Meadows North, and he used a whippet, and he enjoyed it. I've never used one, so I don't really have an opinion on it. I will say I liked the security of using the axe, and I even got where on some stuff I would just use my poles and my spikes. And then there's some things you kind of just learn. If it's not a really sketchy section, sometimes if there were deep post holes, I wouldn't put my spikes on, but that's just because there were deep post holes. But I always made sure that I anchored my poles into the mountain. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone take what I did and use it. You have to do what is right for you. And I will say, if there's ever ice or there's ever an angled snow slope, you always need to put your spikes on. And I did that, so. And Danny Booker says, when will you start releasing your YouTube videos of the PCT? Tonight! And they're just going to keep coming out. So yes, we are picking up where I stopped the videos, and they are going to start just coming out every other day until I get all of the content edited, and they will come out every day. Sheila Weldon says, you're an inspiring woman. Thank you. Did you run into any wildlife that frightened you? Yes, I did. I had 3 bear encounters, and the encounters where I saw the bears was not as frightening as when I heard them all around my tent one night. This was towards the end of my hike. I was in Washington, and I had picked up a new ramen, and it had a stir-fry sauce packet, and it was quite pungent, the odor of this stir-fry sauce packet. And unfortunately, when I opened it, it splattered all over my tent, all over me, and it was really, really a strong smell. And I could hear bears all around me in the forest. I could, whoa, whoa, all around me. And I was frantically trying to clean it up before it got dark. I was using my wet wipes because I had heard a story of a hiker that ended up, he was cowboy camping, and he had some kind of food on him, and he woke up with a bear staring him in the face. So I did not sleep that night. But it all turned out fine. Yeah, I recommend, carrying an odor-proof bag of some kind. If you don't do that, you need to keep everything in Ziplocs. And just make sure you keep it clean. That's the most important thing. Don't be lax about it if you're in bear country. And hi, I met you on a trail. I'm very thankful for letting me have a selfie with you. You're a great person. Oh, that's awesome. Who is this? I can't read it. O-A-C-Y. Oh, okay. I don't know who it is just by their handle, but I'm sure. Where did y'all meet? I don't know where we met, but it was wonderful to meet you too. Thank you. David, any mountain lions? I didn't see any mountain lions. I saw lots of marmot. I saw it was either what is the cat? Fisher cat. It was either a Fisher cat. I think it was a Fisher cat. Yeah, and bears. Pika, the little cute Pika with the little tiny bear ears. I think I've written all over my hand. Let me put my pen down. Hello from Roan Mountain, Tennessee. Hello. That's where I want to live. I love the Roan Highlands. My favorite place on earth. All right, guys. I want to thank you for joining me tonight, and we can do this in the future if you guys want to. Just leave me questions and we'll do another live. And I hope you enjoy the videos, and I will see you guys soon. Bye, y'all.